quickly a word on another set of rules that kind of govern the road, and I talk about this every week, and I think it's appropriate that I talk about it every week. When you come to Austin and you're engaged as a citizen who wants to speak out on issues of importance to you and to your community and your family, you're not a lobbyist. It's kind of a little bit of become a pet peeve of Michael's and mine, that people come to Austin and they say, well, we're going to have a lobby day, or we're going to go lobby our legislators. Now, a lobbyist is a hired gun. A lobbyist is somebody who builds relationships and then sells those relationships to an organization that needs those advocacy skills. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, but it's different than being a citizen and going to talk to the legislature about things you care about. You have a First Amendment right to petition your government for redress of grievances. It's just the way it works. That said, when you come to Austin and you're effective in either disrupting what a lot of people who make a lot of money off this place are trying to do, or pushing something that may not be popular with liberal interests or what have you, you're going to get a little bit of scrutiny. And so what I would encourage you to do is be careful with regard to the lobby law so that you don't get classified by somebody as, oh, well, that's lobbyist activity. You're not just talking to people. The best things to keep in mind is there's really only two ways that people get classified as being lobbyists. It's if they get paid or if they spend a lot of money. Well, actually, it's not a lot of money. Spend some money. And so my advice is if you're here and you're, let's say your boss gives you the day off work, come down here, come talk to a guy like me, talk about your situation, and figure out and make sure that you're not doing something that could be cast in the wrong light. On the flip side, if you're spending money other than like on your own travel, that kind of thing, I just would encourage you not to do that. I always joke, you'll hear from folks this morning, well, how is it that you're effective in going to talk to the legislature? Schedule a meeting, build a relationship, go talk about what you care about. You don't have to show up with a plate of fajitas. By showing up with a plate of fajitas, you're going to run a risk of looking like a quote-unquote lobbyist, and you can run across certain expenditure thresholds. So leave the goodies at home. There's, in fact, actually not just regulations on lobbying for that. There's actually regulations on the giving of gifts to legislators. If you have a friend who works in the legislature, you can use this as a convenient excuse not to buy them anything anymore. But you actually do have to be very careful of that because those laws are extremely vague and can be twisted against people who are affected. So just be careful with that. Again, I'm around. I'm happy to take a question and help as you have any situations. With that, I guess I'll take any questions you have. You can quiz me on whatever you have.
Is it okay to record a representative without their knowledge in their office or lobby or room, like you just have your phone in your pocket on record? Is that legal and okay? Good idea, bad idea?
Well, I don't know that I'll speak on good idea, bad idea. Could be a very good idea. If somebody's doing something stupid, get it on camera. It's always good entertainment. But sometimes things are bad. Sometimes it can be a little rude, I guess. So that's what you have to weigh: good or bad idea. In Texas, we're a one-party consent state when it comes to recordings. There's a handful of states out there where you have to have both parties consent to the recording, and that even only comes in whenever there's an expectation of privacy. So if you're in a public place or something, even in those states, you can film someone. In this state, you can film. You can film. You can put your camera out, hold it up. You can put a hidden camera and go record somebody. You can put an audio recording thing in your pocket and go record. You can do all of that. You are within your rights in this state as a one party to a conversation to record. Now, one thing you don't want to do, don't ever leave a recording device in a place to set up and then leave, because you run across wiretapping statutes. That's actually illegal. So, it's perfectly fine to record. With regard to regulations in the Capitol, traditionally the rule has been in the House gallery. They have stopped people from recording what goes on the floor from the gallery. That's an unconstitutional regulation, in my opinion. If you want to get arrested for filming up there, maybe come talk to me. It could be kind of fun. There's I think it's like a 10th Circuit or 11th Circuit case that came down in the last couple of years that says that kind of pointless stopping of people from recording is actually a violation of their rights under the Constitution. But there's been some regulation there. In the committees themselves, this is actually where I've seen the worst abuse. Byron Cook and State Affairs, and then I've now seen when State Affairs and the Senate had their hearings on the gun bills a few weeks back, they had the same signs up, and they wanted to limit all filming to credentialed media. And I've actually personally been kicked out. I went there to go get kicked out. I got kicked out of the House State Affairs Committee room, because I held up my phone and did this. Again, there's some potential violations under the Open Meetings Act for kicking somebody out for filming in a situation like that. There's also some potential constitutional violations for kicking somebody out for filming like that when there's no disruption. They're allowed to be there. Why are they not allowed to kind of do this thing? But doesn't mean that you won't. Doesn't mean that you won't get kicked out. So at the end of the day, do what you think is appropriate, and something, as long as it's not impolite or doesn't reflect poorly, I think it's probably fine. But then I think you want to. I think you want to follow orders if you get them on those things.
Let me just add a point to what I think that as a newspaper guy, what I was interested was if I was going to go in with an off-the-record interview, but I was going to have my tape recorder going in my pocket. The question you always have to ask yourself is it worth not being able to have another conversation with this person? That if you're going to secretly record something for the purpose of exposing what they said, that Representative McDonald is corrupt and is going to ask for a bribe, and you want to record it. All right, well, that's worth it. On the other hand, it's because he tells off-color jokes and he's, then maybe that is worth it. But you got to think, well, he'll never talk to you again, and there's any number of other, people who won't either. And so you just have to weigh the value of, if I don't tell him I'm recording the conversation, it's seemingly private conversation, is it worth the loss of future conversations? That's what you have to weigh. And there are those times, and like I said, there are those times it's absolutely worth it because of the public interest, but you got to weigh that carefully.
There's also kind of a personal ethic. I think I've discussed this with some folks about the same point of recording, because it does feel like a gotcha thing. You have let's have a private conversation, and then all of a sudden, boom, somebody has some candor with you and what they think is a private conversation, and then you're putting up their conversation on the internet. Obviously, that isn't going to go very well. But I kind of tend to think about it, or a way I've just tended to approach these sort of things is, it's sometimes a good idea to record a conversation whenever you're kind of worried that somebody might backtrack and lie about what they said. When they lie about it, well, then they're the ones who really breach the confidence of the conversation. If you say, well, he said such and such, and he said, I've never said any such thing, you just tell them, I have my proof. So that's kind of unethic to approach it. I don't know if it's the ethical way to approach that question. I think it's something for each of you.
Tony, Matt has a question about intent, something being placed on intent calendar again. Can you explain that?
Oh, okay.
Not placed again.
Yeah, so, I apologize to some extent. I'm up here as the Mr. Rules guy. I'm like way more of a House expert than a Senate expert, possibly because the Senate doesn't have any rules. I mean, they actually get very defensive about that. They have rules. It's just very much by agreement, by consensus. So again, back to that 2/3 rule that we talked about that they changed to the 3/5 rule at the beginning of the session. They don't have they have a regular calendar, which is this kind of list of bills, and it's the order that they're supposed to go in. They don't go through that order. They take bills out of order and put them on, take them up. Well, if you didn't have an intent calendar, It would just be kind of this lawless thing. It's whoever's recognized at whatever time to bring up whatever bill that they want to bring up. And so there wouldn't be any kind of order as to what bill's going to come up on what day. I mean, it would just be completely lawless operating in the system. So what they've created is, over time, I don't know if they did this back in the 50s or if it developed afterwards, they have an intent calendar. You basically give notice to the lieutenant governor of your intent to pull up a certain number of bills, and I can't recall the specific number, but there's each senator can only have a certain number of bills on the intent calendar. Those are bills that he believes he has, he or she believes they have 3/5 of the votes for, and then it's not exactly clear in what order, but that's the kind of pot of bills that could potentially come up on a given day in the Senate. What not again placed on the intent calendar, my understanding is, if you want to pull down a bill off that thing and put another one of your bills up in order to be able to take a run at that one, you can actually pull a bill down from the intent calendar, push another one in there, and then you make a move on it. And so what that could mean is you have a bill that they put there, they thought they could get it to the floor, but for some reason some senator has a problem with it, or they don't have the votes, or the lieutenant governor doesn't want to call it up, something like that. And so it's pulled down, and then it might be placed back up there again whenever it's in that senator's top 2 bills, top 5 bills, that sort of thing.
Tony, the rule that one cannot use the archived videos of committee meetings for campaign purposes has been around for a very, very long time. And I'm wondering if these little rules now that we can't use cameras that are everywhere to record, because then we could have a gotcha type thing, and are they just trying to maintain that control that they've had for so many years?
I think that's a large part of why you haven't seen any reform on the video and filming issues. Chapter 306 of the Government Code, I guess this is a rule that you all need to know. Though again, I think if you ever get in trouble for it, I think there's some interest out there in litigating this issue. Chapter 306 of the Government Code says you can't use legislatively produced audio or video materials for either commercial gain or for campaign purposes. Now, campaign purposes gets very vague. Not everything you say about a politician is for campaign purposes. In fact, most things you say about a politician or elected official are not for campaign purposes. It's only if you're actually, if you're the actual opponent's campaign and you put something out, it probably would be considered for campaign purposes. Or if you're a citizen and you put it out there and you're putting it out in some way to say, vote for, vote against, elect, re-elect, unelect, those sort of things, and you're talking about an election, that could be potentially classified as campaign use of those materials. So there is some use of it if you just want to use them to speak out and you're not trying to make a buck and you're not trying to say vote for or against, you actually kind of can use them. But that has been an iffy thing. I've been involved in a couple, not a couple cases, but one case, and the state came in and said, well, because you have a donate button on your website, that's a commercial purpose, which to me was a ridiculous answer. We never really got that litigated. On the point of filming, look, we used to be on Real Player until like this year. The video was completely unusable. You couldn't tell who was talking from the video from the back of the room. I think that was by design. That technology was like 1995 technology, and we were still using it a year ago. So they wanted to move very slowly on that. On the filming issue, obviously they don't want video of themselves. They can then be used in a campaign setting. So yes, I think it is collectively designed to make it difficult to get video of legislators acting that way. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as far as filming on the House side goes, there were at least 2 incidents that I know of personally from last week where they shut people down from filming.
Which committee?
Public health and natural resources.
Huh.
And what?
They kick people out for like with their phones or?
No, one of them. Well, the second one was for natural resources. Was me personally.
With the camera.
Yeah. And then so last Tuesday, right after this event last Tuesday, I went over to the public health hearing and was just kind of sitting there, and there was a guy, not my favorite source in the world, but there was a guy from InfoWars filming that hearing on the vaccine stuff, and some committee staffer came up to him after I'd been sitting there for about 15 minutes like, you can't do that, and he started reading the First Amendment to her, and she went out and made some very upset looking phone calls, and then they were discussing, and the committee ended up adjourning before they finished the discussion, so it became kind of a moot point. And then the next day, at the natural resources hearing, I had the camera set up, and Keffer did what you would expect him to do.
Yeah. Well, what was very interesting, the Senate State Affairs Committee, there was an activist from Tarrant County who was in there, and she decided she was going to film with her phone or whatever. She just wouldn't make a scene or anything. And they said, oh, well, you got it. It's only credentialed media. As she pulled out the Constitution, she said, here's my credential. And they didn't kick her out. I mean, the funny, and it makes sense. I mean, pick your battles. Why would you fight somebody over the ability to take pictures of the hearing? It's a really dumb thing to do. But I was kind of entertained by that. I think I gotta let somebody else move on with the show. So thank you.
Appreciate that.